Gopi Janaba Laba Girvardhari Gopi Janaba Laba Girvardhari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yamunatira Panachari Yamunatira Panachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Janaba Girvardhari Jai Gopi Janaba Girvardhari Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari So tells us the Shishimari Shiva. Jai Mr. Babu. So tells us the Shishimari. Go Premanan. So tells Go Premanan. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam 15th chapter 1. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shaya Chakarma Kartu. Chokaya Mohaya Sada Yaya Kaya Dukaya Chadeha Yogam Avyakadishtam Janatanga Jatte Mohaya Sadaya Vavaya Nasaya Chatarmatantum Kaya Dukaya Chadeha Yogam Lokaya Mohaya Sadavayaya Kaya Dukaya Chadeha Yogam Avyakadishtam Janatanga Dakte Bhavaya Nasaya Chakarma Kartum Shokaya Mohaya Sadavayaya Sukaya Dukaya Chadeha Yogam Avyakadishtam Janatanga Datte Sadavayaya Kaya Dukaya Vaishnavis. Bhavaya for birth, Nasaya for death, Cha also, Karma activity, Kartum to do, Lokaya for bereavement, Mohaya for illusion, Sada always, Vayaya for fear, Sukhaya for happiness, dukkaya for distress, ta also, deha yogam, connection with the material body, avyakta by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, ishtam directed, janata the living entities, anga o priyavrata, datte accept. Translation, my dear Priyavrata, by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all living entities accept different types of bodies for birth and death, activity, lamentation, illusion, fear of future dangers, and happiness and distress. Purport. Every living entity who has come to this material world has come here for material enjoyment. But according to his own karma, activities, he must accept a certain type of body given to him by material nature under the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Prakrite Kriyamanani Gunai Karmani Sarvashaha. Everything is being done by Prakriti, material nature, under the direction of the Supreme Lord. Modern scientists do not know why there are varieties of bodies in 8,400,000 forms. The fact is that all these bodies are ordained for the living entities by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, according to the living entities' desires. He gives the living entities freedom to act as they like, but on the other hand, they must accept a body according to the reactions of their activities. Thus, there are different types of bodies. Some living entities have short duration of life, whereas others live for fantastic durations. Every one of them, however, from Brahma down to the ant, acts according to the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is sitting in everyone's heart. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvasya Chaham Rijis Sani Vishto Matasmitir Ganam Apohanam Cha. I am secret in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. It is not a fact, however, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives directions to certain living entities in one way and other living entities in another way. The truth is that every living entity has a certain desire, and the Supreme Lord gives them a chance to fulfill it. The best course, therefore, is to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and act according to his desire. One who does so is liberated. Translation again. My dear Priyavrata, by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all living entities accept different types of bodies from birth and death, activity, lamentation, illusion, fear of future dangers, and happiness and distress. Om Jnana Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. First of all, as the first line of the purport tells us, we must accept, acknowledge, own up to our mission for coming to the material world. Once you clarify why you're here, then you can start to understand better what to do. But simply to understand why you're here What's your mission in coming to the material world is not easy because of the powerful pressure of the illusory energy, which causes forgetfulness. And we want to forget our original purpose in coming to material existence. We want to position ourselves now as reasonable persons trying to live a good, happy life. But if we go to the root of why we are here, it's simply for material enjoyment. Never mind all the platitudes and I want to be a good person, I want to be nice, I want to love and be loved. The root cause of our material existence is we have a mission for attaining material enjoyment. Under whatever title, under whatever designation, love, peace, happiness, respect, the bottom line is always material enjoyment. So therefore, Lord Brahma is pointing out to Priyavrata what the facts are. It's not that Priyavrata doesn't know these things. What's the history of Priyavrata? I wonder how many of you know. He's the oldest son of Swayambhuva Manu. And he should have been the ruler. But he decided at a young age the royal life was not for him. So he headed off to perform austerities, penances, meditation. And in this way, the father of Dhruva Maharaj, Uttanapad, became the ruler. And this continued. The rulers coming in the line of the younger brother, Uttanapad, until there were no more proper persons, descendants in the lineage to accept the post of ruler. After the Prachetas, evidently that was it, that family line. So therefore, Swayambhuva Manu was in a precarious situation. He wanted someone in his family to take over the post of being a Manu. But Priyavrata, the oldest son, the logical, natural choice, was off performing austerities with no intention of coming back. So this may be a little difficult for us to understand today. Come back, Priyavrata, enjoy royal happiness, power, palace life, come back. But he understood what real wealth is. He was happily situated in sense control, dutiful austerity, meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, under the instruction of Narada Muni. Narada Muni Bhajayati. Radhika Ramana Nama. So all the good qualities that Priyavrata was developing in solitude, in austerity, all the reasons why he didn't want to come back and assume the role, the governmental role, those were good reasons why he should come back. As Lord Brahma is seeing it, as Swayambhuva Manu is seeing it. What you're developing on your own, shunning all material involvement, qualifies you to take up the post. Your detachment means you're qualified. He won't take up the post out of ego or desire to enjoy. But Priyavrata, what's he thinking? I'm not taking up that post because it's so risky for my spiritual life. There'll be family entanglement, because if I take up the post, I must marry. There'll be the palace life, power, control, and all at my beck and call. I'm not doing it. But Swayambhuva Manu wants to retire. Now, this is another amazing point. Why should Swayambhuva Manu want to retire? He should stick in office to the last moment. But Swayambhuva Manu knows the Vedic system, that at a certain point, you retire and pass your duties on to a qualified person. So Swayambhuva Manu, knowing that, was in a difficult situation. The qualified person, Priyavrata, didn't want anything to do with anything that resembled material entanglement. And certainly that would be the life of a ruler. That would mean family life, that would mean power, royalty. But Swayambhuva Manu knows that his time, Swayambhuva Manu's time has come. This is another important realization that we can have. There's a time for everything. And Swayambhuva Manu knew the time for my retirement, for my preparing for the next life is upon me. Who do I turn to? The only acceptable heir in the family is Priyavrata. So where is Priyavrata while all this deliberation is going on? Priyavrata is on top of a mountain, getting instruction from Narada Muni. So the two of them are there discussing Atma Tattva, the science of the Supreme. It's at that time that Lord Brahma himself descends. And Swayambhuva Manu is there trying to convince Priyavrata. This is when Narada Muni, this is when Lord Brahma descends. So you can just visualize the top of this mountain. There's Priyavrata in the role of an ascetic, a solitary yogi. And there he is receiving instruction from Narada Muni. Doesn't get any better than that. And then who comes but Swayambhuva Manu, coming to plead with Priyavrata. You have to do it. And Priyavrata is doing something quite unusual for Vedic civilization. He's not taking up the order of the father. In a real human society, fathers are so qualified that it's considered an offense for the son to neglect the order of the father. But Priyavrata evidently is not budging. I don't want it. Family life, palace life, power, control, administration. Don't want it. I'm so happy just in my solitary bhajan. And I'm taking instruction from Narada Muni. It doesn't get any better than that. So let's see. There are three of them on top of the mountain now because Swayambhuva Manu has come to plead with his son. But his son's, nah, no. Not even a Kiwi answer. Yeah, no. Just No, respectfully. So this is a great cosmic situation. So much so that Lord Brahma has to show up. He descends from Brahmalok, the topmost planet of the universe. He descends on his swan carrier. You shouldn't think that this is mythology just because you can't fly around on a swan. You have to fly around on airplanes, which are totally unhealthy, which can crash any moment. That's considered great advancement. Whereas Brahma so elegantly rides on a swan. And he can go from one planet to another easily. He's Adi Kavi, as the first verse of Bhagavatam says. Tene Brahma Hida Adi Kaveya. He's the original intellectual, the original scientist, the original teacher of the universe. So the event of trying to convince Priyavrata is such a cosmic event that Lord Brahma has to come to intervene, because Priyavrata is not accepting the will of the Father, Swayambhuva Manu, and everyone knows for proper civilization you need qualified leaders, otherwise forget it. The people are weak, the people need guidance, the people need proper examples, all of which they don't get these days. Just see, you can ask anyone, how many look to their political leaders for guidance, for wisdom, for proper example how to live? Forget it, no way. Whoever your prime minister is, whoever your MP is, do you look to, please, your example I want to follow. Please, your wisdom I cherish. Your powers of mind and sense control are so impressive. Priyavrata had all those qualities, and therefore his father wanted him in, and Brahma wants him in, and Priyavrata wants out. So what are we going to do here? So here we are on top of the mountain, Gandhamandana mountain. And there, as we said, Priyavrata and Narada Muni having their own Bhagavad Dharma session, teaching session, in which Priyavrata is soaking up instructions and knowledge from Narada Muni. They're joined by Swayambhuva Manu, who, as we have been saying, failed in his attempt to convince his son. I want to retire, please. You're the only logical choice, the natural choice according to the system. You're the one in the family line. You should have been the ruler since youth, but you went off to the forest to meditate, and therefore Uttanapad, your younger brother, had to take the throne. But Uttanapad has no more logical descendants to continue. So therefore we're turning to you, Priyavrata. You went away as a youth, but now your time has come. It's not happening. It's not working. Swayambhuva Manu's request is not being honored, which in of itself is an extraordinary event, as we explained. You know the Kali Yuga standard of honor, in which no one feels obligated to keep their promises or word about anything. Everything is experimental and experiential. Well, I said I would do that last year, but this year is different. My experiences have changed. So therefore, my vows, my promises have changed. What could be so more easy to understand than that? I took initiation vows some years ago. I meant it when I said it, but the body has changed, the mind has changed, circumstances have changed. So, because my experience has changed, my word, my promise has changed. So this is how the dense darkness of Kali Yuga, human beings live their life. It's all about experience. And experience justifies everything. Because my experiences have changed, my word of honor should be changed also. And everyone will nod their head. Yeah, it makes sense. Just got to go with the flow of experience. So therefore, Swayambhuva Manu failing to convince Priyavrata when seen through contemporary lens, the lens of contemporary life, looks natural. So what? Dad asked his son to do something, the son said no, big deal. The son's got his own life. Father should just back off. The father should have the attitude, just like New Zealand parenting, the prominent attitude. What is it? We just want you to be happy your way. Live your life your own way. All we want is that you're happy in a way that you feel is happiness. That's considered enlightened parenting. Whatever you do, just be happy your way. But this is not the standard presented by Swayambhuva Manu. But still, Priyavrata is refusing. No. And Priyavrata has the backing of Narada Muni. So he's not just out on a limb on his own. He's got the backing of Narada Muni. So Swayambhuva Manu knows this is a very difficult situation. I'm telling him as the father one thing, and here Narada Muni is gumming up the works divinely. So Lord Brahma has to come to resolve the situation. And Prabhupada gives a hint in one of the purports of this chapter that actually such an event happens quite often, that Lord Brahma has to come and convince someone to become a Manu. Because everyone wants, I don't want any responsibility. I'm happy in my meditation. I don't want the complications of power, control, royal life, no way. So evidently this is not the first or not the only time. Brahma has to do it many times. So this shows you something about real human civilization, again. That there's no eagerness to take up power and control simply for the sake of power and control. And there's a healthy fear of what power and control can do to your life. What royal life, what family life, when lived improperly, the karmic complications that it can cause. So many times Brahma has to cope with such a situation. Whereas what's the standard of the world today? Let me get the top post by hook or crook. Let me tell the people anything, whatever they want to hear. Let me make them angry. Let them make me lusty and greedy. I'll promise them so many things. We'll blame everything on some other people. In this way, I can divide and conquer. So it's very necessary for us to bathe our intelligence in the science of Srimad Bhagavatam. Otherwise, how would we know any different? We would think, well, the way it is now is the way it's always been. There can never be anything better. But Bhagavatam is telling you there is something better. In contrast to what human beings are doing today, is not the symptom of an advanced civilization. We become so bewildered by technological advancement, even though the technological advancement brings so many bad effects. All right, so Brahma is appearing on his swan. And he comes with associates. Lord Shiva is coming. Sages are coming. So they're all gathering on top of the Gandhamandana hill. In fact, you have now, out of 12 Mahajans, Swayambur Narada Shambhu Kumara Kapilo Manu, Prahlada Janako Bhishmam, Baliya Vyasa, who knows? Baliya Vyasaki alone. Bayan. 12 Mahajans, 12 authorities in devotional service. You have 4 of them now on top of the hill dealing with the situation. You have Lord Shiva, you have Brahma, you have Narada Muni, you have Swayambhu Vamanu. So this is an extraordinary gathering because the purpose is extraordinary. Someone has to take up the post. So Narada Muni is now reminding Priyavrata, look, we all function according to the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'm not going to twist your arm just because of my own decision, my own opinion, that you should be in charge. You should take up the post. No, it's not just me. This is actually the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And don't be jealous or envious of that order. Sometimes when our material conceptions, our material plans are frustrated, we get a little angry with Krishna. Why are you doing this? Why do I have to do that? Just like for those who are in the working world, which is so many of our devotees, they always have to beware of something called revenge bedtime procrastination. Anyone know what that is? Raise your hand if you do. Revenge bedtime procrastination. All day long, I've slaved for the boss. The boss says jump, I say how high. All day long, I've done that. Now, it's the end of the day, I'm at home. I want just to do what I want to do. All throughout the day, I've done what someone else asked me to do. Now, what do you expect when I get home? That I'm going to follow the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Read Bhagavatam, chant Hare Krishna? No, I rebel. And so, therefore, you stay up later and later and later at night because you want time for you, even though you know that getting up in the morning will be very difficult. Go to bed late, you get up late. So this is called by psychologists revenge bedtime procrastination. I'm putting off my taking rest so I can rise at a decent time in the morning because I want to do my thing. I want to rebel. I'm going to play video games. I'm going to go online, social media, whatever, anything, but it's all going to be me and my decision. And so in this way, you go to bed at midnight, get up at 8 o'clock. Oh, I can't chant Hare Krishna. Everyone knows that. There's no time for that. Dash off to work. So we have our own version of revenge bedtime procrastination. I had enough of Krishna telling me this and you can't do that. I'm just going to go on a binge of being me. Just for a short time. When you listen to Lord Brahma in this chapter, you become nicely, pleasantly convinced that everyone naturally, organically follows the order of the Supreme Personality. How does that, in this lifetime, how does that acceptance of the control and supervision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead begin? By your accepting a body. You have accepted a body under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So just look at your body and there you can see no independence. You had certain desires which brought about certain actions, which brought about certain reactions, and therefore you have the body you have now. So not only do you get situated, framed with a certain body by the laws of nature, acting under the control of Supreme Personality of Godhead, but your happiness and distress is also controlled. This is very hard for people to understand today. I notice no matter how many times they hear the explanation, they still think happiness is my own thing. Pursuit of my own happiness. That's the way my life is going to be. I can make a difference in my own material happiness by being material. Power is in my hand. I was recalling one statement by a very famous, probably the most famous atheistic scientist. He said, don't you realize it's so infantile, so childish for you to think that someone else, some higher being, should give your life meaning and purpose? Now, isn't that childish? Isn't that infantile? It's up to you to give your life meaning and purpose. You have the power to make your life as wonderful and delightful and full of meaning as you like. This sounds so intoxicating. When actually, if you listen to what Lord Brahma is explaining to Devamrita, you see how controlled our situation is. We have a little bit of leeway, little bit of scope for independence because we're so tiny. Krishna is Swarat. He has unlimited independence. Because we are tiny samples of the Supreme, we also have the characteristic of independence, but it's in the same magnitude or in correlation to our tininess as a jiva. So our independence is very tiny. We make a big thing of, in a consumer society especially, I'll choose this flavor, vanilla and not chocolate. And you feel, catch yourself doing that. You feel a sense of choice. You feel a sense of scope, a range of opportunities. Many flavors. And the more flavors, the more choices that are offered, the more you think you're free. There's this famous ice cream store. I don't know if it ever came to New Zealand, but in the US, Baskin & Robbins. Their selling point was 33 flavors of ice cream. I get to choose. But you fool, you had to work hard to get the money. And now you can choose 33 flavors. And how much of those 33 flavors can you eat before you don't want any more? But 33 flavors. Let's see. Hawaiian pineapple mixed with macadamia. Oh, yeah. Life. And therefore you want more money. The more money you have, the more flavors are at your beck and call. Meanwhile, you turn to the seventh canto, and what does Prahlad Maharaj say? The flavors of sense gratification are the same in any species of life. So why work so hard to get the same flavors that the cats, the frogs get for free. Why, how can that be so? I mean, when I think of material enjoyment, comfortable home, opulences, what does the frog have? What does the cat have? But the flavor of going to sleep soundly is the same, whether you're a cat laying on a mat in the sun, or you're a billionaire laying in a gorgeous palatial room. When you're asleep, this is hard to understand, but think about it. When you're actually asleep, the flavor is the same of sleeping soundly. You ever look at an animal sleeping, cat or a dog? In India, the dogs sleep in the middle of the road. But if you can understand with the eyes of knowledge, they're tasting the same flavor as a billionaire tastes in his palatial bedroom. The flavor is the same. Don't trip out on the circumstances. Who wants to go to sleep in the middle of a road like a dog? I want to sleep in the room, a palatial room of a billionaire. The circumstances are different. The trappings are different, but the actual flavor of the experience is the same. The more you understand this, the more you can free yourself from pursuing the illusions of material existence, which prop up your pride. Oh, look what you have at your beck and call. Look at the array of opportunities ahead of you. All you need is more money, more power, more control. That means more lust, more greed, more envy. You got to attain you. You got to do you, be you. The pressure is on. The Lord Brahma is explaining. It's not simply that you had to accept a body by the order of the Supreme. You also accept different flavors of happiness and distress according to your karma. But those flavors are actually the same in any species of life. They look different, but they're actually the same. So your happiness and distress is prepackaged. Not simply your body is pre-designated, but with that body, the happiness and distress that you're going to get is all controlled. So we have very little room to maneuver, but we make such a big thing out of it. I chose this flavor ice cream, macadamia with Hawaiian pineapple. No more just chocolate. I had enough of chocolate ice cream with chocolate chips in it. Make such a big thing out of it. I chose to live here and not to live there. Just see how opulent and successful I am. But what's the point? What's actually happening in your abode, whether you live here or there? Most of your time is, these days, most of the time you spend in your home and you're sleeping. The rest of the time, what? You're on social media. So the experience of the senses pursuing the sense objects is qualitatively the same in any species of life. This is the wisdom that Prahlad Maharaj was teaching to his 5-year-old schoolmates. And Lord Brahma is telling the same to Priyavrata. We're all bound up. Another great sage of Kali Yuga said, just accept reality. It's not hostile. The universe is not a hostile place. It's an indifferent place. Doesn't care what you do, what you don't do. That's what indifference means. Don't fear the universe. It's not hostile. It's just offering no good, offering no bad. So just get used to living life in immeasurable darkness. And what does that mean? That immeasurable darkness of indifference? It means you make your own light. That's your life's purpose. Make your own light. It shines for a brief moment in time, and then immeasurable darkness. That's the reality. An indifferent universe. Cold, no. Warm, no. Just indifferent. Doesn't care. Once you understand this, then you can become empowered to make your own light. This is not what Lord Brahma is telling Priyavrata. He's telling him, as you'll hear in tomorrow's verse, my dear boy, all of us are bound by the Vedic injunctions. Of course, he's going to talk about Varnashram Dharma. We're bound in that way. That's for civilized people. But we're not civilized these days, so we have no Varnashram Dharma, which is the most exalted system of human management. Coming from Krishna himself. Chaturvarnam maya stristam guna karma vibhagasha. Krishna said, I created these orders of life. One last point. Lord Brahma, in speaking to Priyavrata, is smiling. Why is he smiling? He's thinking, Priyavrata, you are stubbornly refusing, and I am stubbornly going to demand that you accept. So in this competition between your stubbornness and my stubbornness, Grandfather Brahma is going to win. Especially since I'm explaining to you, your taking up the post is not simply my idea, it is the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Don't be envious, don't be jealous of that order. Any questions? I couldn't see. Yes.
My question was basically on and because we're in a certain type of civilization currently established around the world, how do we expect national government to take shape?
At least we can think about it. Reject it. We can't reject it because it is the desire of the parampara. From Bhakti Vinod to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur to Srila Prabhupada. If we don't think about it, we'll never be able to do it in any way. At least we can think about it. It is daunting, to say the very least. But it's the only way that human beings will be satisfied. Otherwise, their social arrangements become chaotic and full of despair and confusion. That's what you see going on today. Which Bhagavatam says you should expect because you're neglecting the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to establish society according to Varnashram, and therefore you should expect to be confused. And it's very difficult these days to talk about Varnashram because people think immediately, Sharira. What do you call them? Middle East? Yes, Sharia law. Yes. Oh, Taliban. Everyone's roles are predetermined. Slavery. So we should certainly think about it. Maybe we don't figure it all out in this lifetime, but we have to pass the mandate on to the next generation. Srila Prabhupada definitely didn't forget about it or file it. He would bring it up time and time again. How to do it? First of all, you could say we need to establish a class of brahmanas, real brahmanas. The other hint Prabhupada gave us, right before he departed, said, I'm going to go to the Gita Nagari farm project and show how to start Varnashram Dharma by living off the land. Living off the land means the land produces something. Doesn't mean just having a Hare Krishna commune on top of the land. Living off the land means the land produces. So one step forward we can make is to actually have land that produces food and then start organizing society around that. Because everyone eats, right? Is there anyone in this room who doesn't eat? Everyone eats. So that's one suggestion we can take from Srila Prabhupada's activities. I'm going to go to Gita Nagari, sit down and show how to live off the land, start Varnashram Dharma in that way. Live off the land produces, not just for housing, not just for residences. The land should produce. So we have creation of a real class of brahmanas, the head of the social body. We have land that produces. When I say we have, those are the suggestions we have. We're trying to create a stable grihastha ashram scene. Very difficult, especially in the Wild West. Marriages, 50% don't stay together. So how are you going to have a stable society when families are marrying, divorcing? Children have to grow up in such an environment. Marrying, divorcing, remarrying. Oh, that's your pizza now. Oh. We're trying to create a real brahmacharya ashram, real sannyas ashram. A lot of work. Trying to find water in the desert. So the more you recognize that we're living in a time of great social confusion, chaos, and despair, then you won't have any illusions about what we're dealing with. Of course, as I always point out, in Bharat, in India, you still find remnants of real human civilization, but that's being corroded very quickly. Don't think that the material nature is going to just sit back and let you live according to your illusions. You have to cope with wars, natural disasters, epidemics, pandemics. all kinds of material afflictions. Don't think that, oh, well, things are just going to go on the way they are. Never been the case. It's just that the greatest tragedy of the current generation is that they haven't learned from the mistakes of the previous generations. Just 80 years ago, the world was a complete military mess. But there's no one alive now, practically, very few who remember all that. Maybe your father in Germany can tell you what Germany was like during the 40s, or, huh? But how many are, he's 85 now. So this is the nature of Maya, forgetfulness. The greatest tragedy is that each generation has to learn the lessons afresh and then forget them for the next generation. This is the power of Maya. So don't think that the material energy is just going to let you peacefully live in nescience. It's not going to happen. I remember talking to one of your former prime ministers in New Zealand, and he knew some of Bhagavad Gita. And he was telling me, I used to think idealistically, but that's just not how that's not the way the world works. Got to get with it. You Hare Krishnas say that this is demoniac. All the plans for control of human beings. But I tell you, someone has to be in power. If you're smart enough to figure this out, become one of us. It's not demoniac, he kept protesting. I know what Bhagavad Gita says, but look, someone has to be in control. So he thought he's being pragmatic. Look, I used to be idealistic in the past, but that's not the way the world works. You got to go with the flow. Fortunately, there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And unfortunately, material nature will exact its toll. The poor former prime minister left his body in 64, 65 years of age. Couldn't do anything about that. The best medical help couldn't save his body. Someone has to be in control. Guess who it is? As Krishna says in the Gita, Kalosmi, I am time. Mrityu sarva haraschaham. I come as death. I nail everyone. So he was right. Someone has to be in control. But it wasn't him. Of course, we appreciate whatever good intentions and contributions he made to Krishna Conscious Society. Just by having a favorable attitude. That's wonderful. He came here to New Varshan. I remember talking to him in the lounge area of Madhuri Mataji's house. Anything else? Yes. Make a plan ahead of time how to best use those evening hours. Otherwise, the way the mind works, it's going to Come on, come on. Some time for you and your choices, your own proclivities. Someone's waiting for you on social media. Have you seen the latest? The men like video games. I don't know if the ladies are into video games. Are they? The men, they really like it. I've asked at our Easter festival here in New Zealand that Chandidas makes a presentation about the nectar of video games. He knows how they're designed to addict you. Challenge you just enough that you have scope for improvement, reward you, and then lead you on and on, the next step, the next step, the next hour, the next night, the next day. The video game industry employs psychologists, anthropologists. They're not just techies. They want to manipulate human beings for profit. I saw one survey about men in the USA, which said that 70% of men in the USA would rather give up food than video games. So for the precious evening hours before you take rest early, in order to get up early, you have to have a plan. If you have a family, bring the family together for kirtan, have some reading time. Of course, if you have a family, there has to be time for sorting out family affairs. But whatever, you need a plan. Otherwise, Maya will have a plan for you. Yes.
Maharaj or Swami couldn't it be devotional service?
That's the next class. But Priyavrata is very intelligent. The Bhagavatam uses the word for being very intelligent, meaning he should know that the two sides are not contradictory. So what he should do, he resolves the situation by taking up the post in a spirit of renunciation. He enters family life in the spirit of renunciation. He takes up the royal post in the spirit of renunciation. So he combines the instructions of Narada Muni with the instructions of Lord Brahma. This is according to Rupa Goswami's instruction in Laghu Bhagavatamrita, that when you hear two apparently contradictory things from Shastra, you combine both of them. Don't just immediately say, that can't be so, because on the other hand, you have this. The Parampara method is to combine both. And that's what Priyavrata did. Find this point quoted in commentary by Baladev Vidyabhushan in Laghu Bhagavatamrita, how to handle two apparently contradictory points from Shastras. Yes. Sukham Naija, Deha Yogena Dehina. Yes? Daily intelligence in Srimad Bhagavatam. You might think, well, I read this once. Yeah, Prahlad Maharaj, Sukham, Aindrikam Daitya. Every day you have to bathe your intelligence. Once you understand the forces you're up against, otherwise you're flying blindly. I read that 2 weeks ago. That's why we have daily sadhana, and part of the daily sadhana, of course, is hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Read something, even in your busy working life. Read something and think about it. You probably don't have the luxury of the Brahmacharya ashram, 2 hours of reading time a day. Remember those days, Gopinath? You have to do your work and family responsibilities, but at least read something and think about it. That's the nature of Srila Prabhupada's books. You can, just like this purport we read today, you can just read a purport and think about it. Don't just rattle it off. Okay, every living entity which comes to this material world has come here for material enjoyment. But according to his own karma, activities, he must accept a certain type of body given to him by material nature under the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Oh, done my reading. Okay. Read it and think about it. An easy way to think about it is to discuss it with someone. And then you can more effectively deal with this monstrous ahankara, false ego we have, of wanting to be in control so that we can enjoy. Remember, as soon as you want to enjoy, you have to control. That's the way material existence is set up. And in order to control so that you can enjoy, you have to work very hard just to shape and control situations so that we can enjoy. Translation again. My dear Priyavrata, by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all living entities accept different types of bodies for birth and death, activity, lamentation, illusion, fear of future dangers, and happiness and distress. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
His Holiness Devamrita Maharaj ki